on the first one they fixed. They put in heavier bulkheads, and heavier rivets, and then they whitewashed the plane, and they took it up. It was we had one of our officers and somebody from the company, and from the manufacturing company, and they took it up and going to fire to see if they could knock that whitewash off, or they could really determine just where it was hitting the worst, and it never came back. We stood and waited and waited, and so they sent another plane up to find out where in the world they were, and they found a few bodies, or a couple bodies, floating in the water. They were burned, so they had an explosion. I always felt that I knew what happened to it. They had a petcock in the bomb bay that was safety wired shut at all times, but guys would cut the safety wire to open the petcock to get gasoline to wash their hands and stuff. And I think that it didn't, from the vibration of the plane, it probably loosened the petcock enough so it filled the bomb bay with gasoline fumes when they fired these package guns on the side when it blew up. I remember once in Australia when we lived in barracks and worked during the day and had the nights off for ourselves and everything. And I came back from work one night, and in my toolbox I had a heavy piece of metal, a block of metal, sort of, they called a bucking dolly. When you buck a rivet gun on one side, and you have to have the bucking on the other side to make the rivet come out. And I couldn't find the darn thing. And I got home, we were back to the cabin. I got laying thinking about that darn thing. I was working on the inside of a wing. I had the flap extended, and I was in there doing something. And it came to me that that's where I left that darn thing. Because I couldn't find it when I got home, but I thought, well, I left it someplace, so it'll come up to. But I got thinking about that. What if that plane takes off in the morning, and that thing gets in the cables in there or something, and does something so that they can't maneuver the plane. And I called Leo. Leo didn't live or sleep next to me, but he slept a couple away. And I said, will you take me over there, or will you walk with me over there? And you had to start the engine, or start the generator in order to generate power to bring that flap out so I could reach in there. So he said he'd do it. He knew everything about an airplane. We started that thing up and pulled the right lever, and the thing came out, and I crawled up there on the ladder and reached in, and I found it. But he'd say, Ferguson, you're too dank, blankety blank conscientious, he'd always say. He swore, of course. You're too damn conscientious. He was real smart on airplanes. He was a real smart guy, but he knew all about engines and stuff like that. My field was sheet metal. We did everything to modification of the metal. But he knew more about an airplane than the guy that made them. That was his life, I guess. He was a model airplane maker. When we were in Australia, during his spare time, he put together a model airplane, and we were going to have a maiden voyage for it. During the noon hour, we were going to launch this plane. We were alongside of a mountain in Australia, or a mount anyway, called it Mount something. And he launched the plane, and it went up and up and up, and he said, well, it'll level off now pretty soon and come down again. And it never did. It kept on going until it went out of sight. There was a draft there from alongside the mountain, and it pulled it, lifted it up. I don't know whatever happened to it. Out in the outback somewhere, I guess. We're inside of the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. And that's one of the wonders of the world, I guess. Anyway, we went from there to the Philippines in a Liberty ship. A Liberty ship was a ship that they made during the war here. They made literally hundreds of them, I guess, and made for hauling goods. And we happened to draw one for hauling our outfit. And there was no place to sleep except on the steel planks in the bottom of the holds. So the hold was covered. Holds is where the goods, when you haul goods that on ships, they drop it down the holds. Well, that's where we slept, and we had a ladder going down there, and the rest of it was covered all over except one plank or two that they'd taken out to make room for the ladder. So you slept with somebody else's feet in your face, that was all right. We were on there for only about 2 weeks anyway, I guess. Probably less than that. And for cooking facilities, they welded a couple of camp stoves on the deck, and with a tarp over them. And for toilet facilities, they made a trough that they fastened to the railing, and you had salt water running in on one end of it and out the other. And that's where you did your business. It didn't make any difference because there was nothing but men on board anyway, but there's no privacy there. Then that ship took us into Leyte. Leyte was the first island that they took back from the Japs in the Philippine Islands. It's a small island, insignificant island, and but I don't know why they decided on that, and when we came in the harbor there, oh man, we could see the shore, and it was all blasted. The palm trees were cut in two from all the Navy vessels that had been bombarding it to soften it up for the landing. And we had to go down the rope ladder on the ship and into ducks, and the ducks hauled us to the shore. And the minute we got to shore, there was an air raid, and oh gosh, I know my buddy and I dived alongside of a bunch of great big wooden boxes, and if a bomb had hit anywhere near, why it would have blown the boxes over on us and would have killed us, but that didn't happen anyway. But it was just one awful mess. There was a tank standing there that one of the tracks had been blown off it, so it stood there just worthless. The Marines, or the infantry was up the road a ways, and when we got there, but they hauled us into a place that they had no place to put us. We weren't supposed to be in anything like that. We got the Philippine invasion ribbon for being the first ones in Leyte. And but we shouldn't have been there because there was no place for airplanes to land or anything. It was a real fiasco. Anyway, they gave us a place to camp, and there was dead Japs laying all over the place. There was 5 or 6 of them there. There was a big bomb crater that had killed them, I suppose. And that was the place that we were supposed to sleep. Well, we woke up we pitched our tent after dark, and then it started to rain, and it rained and rained and rained. Everything we had got wet. A pup tent doesn't leak until you touch the side. When you touch the canvas, it starts leaking right there. So we didn't have a dry thing at all. When you're tired and hungry and wet, why, it's cold anyway.
Mm-hmm.
For sleeping at least. Hank and I slept together. We had one of us right ahead of the other and got our feet together and our hips and all the way up to try and stay warm. And we left. Thank God it only lasted we had about 2 weeks there that I just didn't think I'd ever see home again. I was sure that we wouldn't. If the bombs didn't get us, why the elements would. They called out for a planting detail. Boy, I sure had my fingers crossed. Some guys had to take their shovels and go out and dig a hole and push those dead Japs in. Oh, the ship that we came in on, this Hobart Baker, they said it got sunk in the harbor before it got out of there again. We got everything off except our water trailer. But that went down to the ship, I guess, and so we didn't have any water. Oh gosh. The only thing we had was a canteen full, when we got off. But that didn't last long. But I know they took water out of a gray-looking or brown-looking pond there, but they boiled it so that we could get something to drink. But after a while, and they found a good place for us in a palm tree grove, and we moved our big tents, our 6-man tents in there, and we had cots to sleep on, and then things got pretty good. Then we had the strip ready that would take in airplanes, but they didn't have any place to park the airplanes after they landed. They just had the strip. And I remember a B-25 came in, had something wrong with it and had to land. And the guys started work on it to repair it, and the colonel came along and he said, "We can't have that on the strip. We got other planes coming in." "Well, what do we do with it?" "Shove her in the bay," he said. And that's what happened to us. Shoved her in the bay. And another plane came in too. It was a silver bonanza or whatever they called them. Anyway, that had something wrong with one of the engines. And then they started to work on that, and Hearn came back again and he said, "You gotta get that out of here." He said, that plane is no fighting plane. He said, "That plane is brought down here to haul booze for the officers. Shove her in the bay," he said. And that's what he did. We shoved her in the bay. I crawled out at low tide and cut a piece of the beautiful upholstery out of it to wrap my camera in. And when we first got there, there was a Jap plane that had crashed there, and the pilot was still in there. And I took my tin snips and I cut out a piece of the side of the plane, a little piece that had the red star or red circle, the Japanese circle, and part of the green paint. And I sent it to my brother's oldest daughter. And she brought it to school. She said, she wrote me, she was so proud of that little piece of airplane. It was authentic, you know.
Yeah.
And it was one that the pilot was killed in. Well, after a while, we got revetments, they called it, where you could get the planes off the side. That was just as important as having an airstrip, you know. If you can't get the plane off the airstrip, then nobody else can land either. So, so they fixed that. And then one night, a suicide squad came in with the right landing lights on and everything. We had a bunch of fighter planes there parked alongside the airport. And they came in just deliberately to destroy as many planes as they could before they got killed by Americans. And they recognized them as being Japs just before they landed, so they blew them out of the sky, and they fell all over the guys. The catastrophe was